Well, we can talk about all of the fun things that go about just to get to this point, and how we have to look at the lighting and see if we're framed properly, and
Well,
then we're like
I don't
looking at
know.
this screen off to the side, making sure that we look okay, and then
Well,
there's audio that doesn't work.
well, that
Yeah.
doesn't sound like it's the most topic that makes the most sense
No,
for
this
us.
has nothing to do with homeowners.
No, no,
And
no.
there's actually a backlit light below us so that people
I don't. Why are you even saying that? Like, no one cares.
well, they have to understand, just
Let's
got a
talk
little.
about something about homes. Or do
Yes.
we want to just talk about um like little tips and tricks and things that like we can think of with both owning our own home and or like the things that you've come across that maybe people don't think about, like general. So here's where I'm going with it.
Yeah. You're gonna have to
I'll
help me
lead.
out on this
I'll
one
lead.
because I'm
No, I'm going to lead the way here.
there we go.
All right. So one of the biggest things, and I don't think people understand because I'll speak for myself. I didn't understand at, initially when I bought my first home is how important it is to use a specified cleaner for the material you're cleaning,
Mm.
right? So I didn't really understand why the cleaner, particularly the cleaner, has to be approved for granite,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So this is where I'm going with it. Like when you're like really theoretically, like who would care? Like, right? Like who cares? But what it could happen and probably would happen maybe over time because usually there's a factory finish, right? On granite, for example. Right? Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Right. Is that if you're using non-approved granite cleaners and you've never had granite before or you've upgraded, it's either your first home or you've upgraded to granite countertops, it will
Mm-hmm.
eat away at the cleaner will. So that's where I'm going with this. Like
Love
things
that.
that people wouldn't
Right.
necessarily think about or care.
Yep.
Another one, I'm full of these, apparently.
Yeah.
Another one that just came to me is because this happened to us. We bought a relatively expensive rug, an area rug for us, for our living room. And at the time, we used um, a robot vacuum to like help with most like maintenance. Now, the pile on this rug is not something you would ever think would catch
Mm.
because it didn't. I don't know the technical word for all the pile, like the types of rugs, but it didn't have the like noticeable fabric that would ever catch. Well, what happened? We ran that
Yeah.
stupid robot
Yeah.
and it caught and I heard something and I figured, oh, it just sucked up
Yeah.
something from the carpet and that's awesome. Make sure if you're going to use a robot type of vacuum that it is going to properly clean and not eat. And what ended up happening with ours is luckily we caught it quick. But like there's now loops of fabric that kind of came up and
Mm.
I've been on my hands and knees because I love this carpet and it wasn't as bad and like noticeable. It literally was like trimming it, trying to fix
Mm.
a part
Yeah.
of it.
I
But
mean,
like I never thought of
right.
I would have never even again, like before it happened, would have never thought of it.
Yeah, and you can kind of go to the store and you can kind of look in the cleaning section and be like, "Oh, these are just like they're just trying to get more products for
Yeah,
you
yeah.
to buy.
Yeah.
Let me
And
just get an all-purpose." But
yeah.
they've come a long way in granites, but and they typically the manufacturer dips the stone with a sealer, so it
Oh,
helps
yeah.
a little bit with,
Right.
but you're absolutely right. Natural stone will etch with anything that kind of has an acid base to it. So a lot of cleaners are not good for granite,
Yep.
but that's what I think where people to kind of tease that out and go down that in that direction. What we find is when we walk into showers that have natural stone, that's where people are not using the right
Oh,
cleaners. And typically, what it
yeah.
is like, a lot of those people have a cleaning company that comes in and maybe doesn't really have an understanding of
Mm.
what to use, or they're not familiar with the natural stones. So,
So what does it look like? Like little divots in the
no, it starts to discolor, and it
Oh,
breaks down the
okay.
finish.
Right. So, that I've
Yeah.
seen.
So you'll see an
So,
older granite countertop that hasn't been dipped, and you'll see that hasn't been if you don't have, and it's usually some of the big companies, is I think it's Sensa or something, that's the sealant that they put on. If you're not sealing your natural stone every year, what's gonna and you're not using the right cleaner, you're
right.
gonna just start to see like the finish is gonna start to wear. Like, so you'll be able to, when there's the light is on the counter,
Yeah, I've seen it.
you're gonna kind of see like it's wearing, but
Yep.
it's not as shiny in certain areas.
Yep.
And that's basically now all that
And
stuff can
that's where like staining can come,
exactly,
right? Like so
exactly.
when you're spilling
Yeah.
things,
It's the city and the wine. Be
right?
careful of your citrus fruits, your
Yeah, like
lemons and
juicing a
limes.
lemon.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Make sure you wipe that because it's going to etch it. But I think more so in the showers, we see, because what happens in showers is you have the soap scum. So the
Right.
cleaner gets in there and is using
It's like
more of a
oh,
powerful product.
and like maybe an abrasive sponge
Exactly.
and really going at
Exactly.
it to get stuff off. Yeah.
Stainless steel is
Yeah.
another thing, not using, be careful with stainless steel, and not using the right products or the right applicator, and then you can scratch stainless steel very easily.
Mm,
Um,
yeah. Like even like what you're choosing to now we're like apparently a cleaning show, but
yeah,
but like the sponge that you're
right,
using, right?
right.
Like those, yeah, a
You
lot of
have to be,
because yeah,
you have to be careful. Anything that has a shiny finish, and you're in there with Ajax or something, which is basically, can be, it's just like a sandpaper.
yeah,
Some
yeah,
of this
yeah, yeah,
stuff can
yeah,
just,
yeah,
micro. But yeah, I mean, it is all about the home and keeping what you have, your current home, in good shape. I
right.
mean,
Yeah, like we had talked about like the home maintenance thing, and I don't even think we covered everything. But again, I think from a home ownership perspective, and frankly, buying, selling, remodeling,
mhm,
um, you know, whether you spent the money purchasing the home or you spent the money redoing your kitchen, bathroom, you want it to look the way it looked when you
right.
first
You
installed
want it
it,
to
right?
last.
And
Yeah.
last
Yep.
and not stain and not wear um it, like prematurely.
Right.
That's the word I was thinking
And
about.
I think, another big thing is being in New England, um, hardwood floors is
Mm,
kind of a standard. There were even the older homes that was, you're going to cut the tree down,
I
on
know.
your
I
lot,
love
and
those
then
hardwood floors.
and make the thing. So it's more of a tradition, not, more tile and stuff when you get in the South,
Right.
just for demand and obviously durability. But so we have a lot of hardwood floors,
Yep.
and what people don't realize is you can refinish them to beautiful,
Yeah.
back to their original beautiful, and you can usually refinish them, 3 or 4 times. So hardwood floors is our 100-year-old floor.
Yep.
Like we'll find homes right now that were built in the early 1900s, and we will refinish it. And that's an old fir floor.
Mm,
But kind of falling, kind of continuing the the maintenance theme of this is there are lots of nice polishes
mm.
that can keep your floor to the point where it doesn't need to be refinished. So your wear areas, and that's
Yeah, the
typically,
main traffic.
yeah, the
Yeah.
hallways or
Yep.
that route in the kitchen that goes, having it needs to be cleaned very well,
Yep.
but then applying on a polish, and you can get polishes that are almost similar to finishes.
Yep. Yep.
So that will last a year or 2 years. So do
But in like anything else, there's grades, there's
right.
qualities.
Yeah.
Just like in a car, when you're refinishing the leather in your
Mhm.
car, there's different, like, I used to have a coworker who was like, "No, that's garbage. Don't use that. Don't,
Right.
don't get it here.
Yeah.
Don't use this brand because it's junk."
Yep.
But to that end, make sure that it's not just putting like almost like a wax coating,
Right.
like to
Yeah.
the quality is on
A-
the higher end, and
And
like just be discerning about it
and maybe
maybe.
you're like, I don't want to do the research. I don't want to go online and
Yeah.
and figure out what it is.
Yeah.
There's plenty of companies out there that do a sandless refinish
Yeah.
of your hardwood floor. Now, they're not, that's not taking out, the gouges and the
Right.
scratches.
Right.
But if you're starting to see a little bit of a wear, that shiny, finish is
Mm.
kind of in the thing, way better to come in, get them nice and refreshed.
Yep.
And you might extend another 10 years of not having to refinish them. And honestly, refinishing your floors, it's an awesome bang for your buck, but it's a huge pain in the neck.
It is.
And we're in dealing with a client now that we're kind of pricing things out, and it's a large amount, a beautiful home in Burlington.
Mm.
And their house was built 20 years ago, all hardwood floors throughout, a larger home.
Yeah.
But they're like, well, it's kind of like that natural finish. We'd like to get a little bit darker. So what does that cost? And, the cost is not that big of a deal, but I need to bring a moving company in
Yeah.
to take out all of your
Every
contents.
every
And,
single thing.
and this home is like, you just don't move the stuff. You need professionals
Right.
to move that
Right.
and protect it.
Right.
And then it needs to be stored for up to a week. So can
And
we,
cared for, like
yeah,
climate controlled, all of the
100%.
things. The other thing, again, because I love the look of it, and actually we have a family member who learned this the hard way, themselves. And I love the look of a darker floor.
Mm,
I do.
yes.
But
But
when you can see every single particle,
Yeah.
and as much as you're vacuuming and Swiffering or doing whatever you do to clean your floors, and that little, you just finished, and you worked hard on it, and then you could see the particle of dust or the hair from your
yeah.
head or your dog's hair or whatever, it will, well, I'll speak for us. That would drive me crazy.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah,
couldn't.
it's
I
the,
couldn't.
you're
And
walking,
I would rather
a
not.
lint falls
No,
off of
it
you,
would.
and you see it.
Yes, and I personally, and our family decided to
Basically replace
replace
it
it
within a couple of years
was
because it was
not-
such a.
it
such
was,
a,
yeah, and I don't blame them. I
Yeah.
really don't, because I do love the look of
Yeah.
it. So I think that's another kind of hot tip.
Right.
Before, and like people say this, and I don't know if you have an opinion or a thought. I think there is some ways to fix it, but like square sinks.
Yes, that's
Like
a good one.
square sinks are great in theory, and I love like stuff that has super clean lines. Like I'm
Terrible
more
to clean. They don't drain
they
well.
don't, and I think there's companies trying to fix it. It could be marketing, I don't know.
Yeah.
But like think about that. The corners of any corner.
Right.
It's super hard to get that clean.
Yep.
Make sure that it's not like oh.
Yeah.
But the point is, things in theory look great in a magazine or in a board or on social media until you're really trying to, day in and day out, trying to like go about your life. And, I would love to have my robot vacuum my carpet, but
Yeah.
who knew it was going to get eaten?
I don't think like people understand when new products come out. They've only tested them in so many different varieties.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's a big one I just saw. a fellow, builder, not in this area, but does really good social media. I forget his name because I definitely give him a shout out on this one. Was talking about apron sinks. Now,
Oh,
apron
yeah.
sinks have been, they've been around, right?
Describe what that is for
And so,
people.
what is an apron sink? A lot of people might think that's a farmhouse sink, and that means like the sink. It's usually white porcelain. It comes around, and there's an apron in the front.
Okay.
And that's they kind of why people have thought and they like that is because you're washing the dishes, and now you have a wear area for you to lean up
Right.
against.
Right.
Right. And because that when we go in to do kitchen remodels, the first part would be that front panel
Yep.
underneath the sink is usually pretty well damaged.
Gotcha.
Just because that's all of your contact.
Right.
Contact is right there.
Right. Right.
So that's usually, and then it's, the doors underneath is usually, so apron sinks are hot now. They look cool.
Okay.
However, what's happening is
me.
the water is coming off that apron.
Oh.
It is running down the front of the apron.
Yeah.
It is hitting the top parts of the doors of the cabinets.
And it's probably like going down in and
Into the-
above.
Right, but it's what
Or
it's
in
doing
front.
is that, that wood is absorbing that
And it's
moisture
gonna-
and it's starting to peel the paint and to,
like
warp
warp
it, disform the
Yeah.
door. And now that's the problem. And
Who would
awesome
ever think?
product,
Right.
love
Who would
it.
think about that?
We're at that 5-10 year mark where it's popular enough, that people.
Huh.
So now he does a piece of countertop like what we would do a
Like
drip
almost
edge
like-
on a window to cover the
Oh.
top of the doors. And obviously it's hard to explain, but
Right. Right.
the point is that new stuff can have issues with maintenance down the road. And now, beautiful kitchen, we
Well,
went with
it's like-
that, and it creates moisture and
Well, and it's just like anything else in life. It's like unintended consequences, right? Like we're trying to solve a problem with this thing, which theoretically should solve the problem, but it is causing another one, which no one thought about. And yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And Mm-hmm.
lots of, so I mean it's a lot of things that when you think about remodeling, but it's also how is this stuff going to maintain
Right.
that dark floor. Well, it's beautiful. And if you go with a dark floor and you make it like a gloss or a high gloss, it shows
Yeah.
everything. So now you got to think, well, maybe I've got to bring in the cleaner 2 or 3 times a month,
Oh,
or
a month.
It's
You
me,
better
it's you swiftering
every day.
right,
Yeah.
or
Let alone
some people
an animal.
Yeah.
Or if somebody drops something, that's another thing to think about.
and
like
we have Blue, right, our
Yep,
dog,
yep.
who's hyperallergenic, does not shed, but still sheds enough.
Well,
that
he
I
has,
can't even imagine,
He does
like
my hair,
Yeah,
our hair, right?
right.
Like he, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's how he sheds.
Yeah. But I mean,
But
but if
dog's
you had
nails, like if your
Yeah.
dog is like skittish about getting their nails cut,
but if
all
you have
of
like
the
a golden
things.
retriever that like really sheds, and you
or
have
like-
a dark floor,
Uh,
you might as well just follow the dog around because it's
With
gonna
a-
gonna drive you nuts.
it's and there's a lot of breeds that
Yeah,
are like
that are
that.
just-
What's much worse than I think
Yeah.
a retriever.
Yeah.
But one of the things I said in another video that I also think is an underrated kind of point or thing to think about is moving your area rugs.
Ooh, yes.
Because what I do when I go into a home to show it is, guess what I do? I lift them up. And
Mm.
sometimes people are a little sneaky. They try to hide a really big gouge. Like if a rug ever
Stain.
looks out of place.
Yeah, it's like in the corner
It's like
somewhere. You're like, why
no,
is it over there?
You would be
Yeah.
surprised what people, and I'm like, am I the only realtor who is like actually catching these things? Like, am I the only people just like walking on by? And I would venture to guess that there are people who would never
Mm.
picture sometimes that look a little trying to see if there's a little something behind there.
Yeah.
usually you could see an outline on the wall. If it's been there long enough, depends on the cleaning, the maintenance of it. Even, I don't know what you would say, but I would even say a quarter of an inch, moving that, but on a regular basis, shifting your area rugs and making sure, even if you have that liner, is that are we
Yeah, like
calling
the
it like a
underlayment. Yeah,
pad
the
or
pad
something like,
underneath. Yeah.
yeah, for, again, we're talking area rug, moving it all,
And I,
making even like, just because it doesn't, you don't think about it, even if it's in a room that you don't frequent, but it will make, and dog beds. Blue has a lot of them. Dave has asked me, really strongly suggested that I don't buy any more dog beds.
well, he needs one in every room, clearly.
Well,
yeah.
I think maybe two.
Yeah.
I would
just in case.
I mean,
so
just
he
in
can choose
case.
as he walks
Yeah.
into each room. He can choose which one.
Really,
what the softness level
yes,
he's feeling.
because you never know if he's sore.
Yeah.
He might need another option.
Or his back maybe needs a little bit more,
Support.
firm support.
Yeah. Which,
I love that for him.
Yeah, except that if I come home with another dog bed, Dave will not love that for him.
But I love where you're going with this
because again, it's the things on the floor where.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are two points that we can go on this one. The times we've bought those houses, and you've been actually part of the walkthroughs where it looks beautiful when everybody's stuff is in the house. The lights are on, and then they walk in the day of closing, and we've had this experience too, and you're like, you see the outlines of the pictures, you see the outlines of all the rugs, you realize how poor shape it is.
Yeah.
And you're a little bit of a buyer's remorse. You're like, oh my goodness, I have to like repaint all this because my pictures aren't the same size and my rugs aren't the same size.
Yeah, because I mean, even in our eye, right? Both of us, and there's a lot, and my buyers know. Especially my buyers, all my clients know this, that I am like unabashedly honest. I tell it like it is. I'm like, this doesn't look right. We're out of here. This is not a whatever. But to your point, it could look great. So you are a little like duped in a way. So what I say to people is always make that assumption.
Right.
Assume you're going to have to paint.
Yep.
Assume you're going to have to refinish the floor, especially when there's a lot of area rugs. That's like, for me, a tall tale sign.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Just because it's hard to prevent that. Right. It's hard to prevent. And what we're talking about, just to be entirely clear, is the polyurethane finish.
Yep.
Wears around the edges and the sides of where that rug is.
But let's talk why though.
Yeah.
And that's because it's wearing because of the UV rays of the sun.
Yep.
So, you can see that like why they push in furniture UV protected, or you can get that additional coat because you've got that couch in front of that, the beautiful windows that show you out to the outside.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like the back of the couch is faded because of the UV. Well, that's doing the same thing to the floor. And what's happening is like the rug is protecting the area, and then all around the rug, that the sun is coming in and it is breaking down the finish of the floor. So I think it brings us right back to that point of, if you put a UV protectant or a polish back on the floor routinely, if it's once a year, you're going to avoid that rug outline because you're going to restore that the floor as you're going, instead of like, 5 years later, you pull the rug and it's just like it's the center of the floor is much darker.
Yeah, yeah. I also, is it also like a pressure thing or no? Because I thought that's what it was, like in addition to the UV, but
I don't know. I mean, there's probably a lot of different stuff. I mean, depending on what the rug material is made out of, it could be having some sort of a chemical
heavy or whatever it is, and that kind of thing. Yeah. But nonetheless, it is something to think about. And again, when you're evaluating a home, just in your mind.
And it really, you know what it does? It really goes back to, I think, a couple podcasts back where you're just like, people don't understand the reoccurring and the additional cost that when you buy a home.
Yeah. And you're not going to want it typically to your point about that Burlington example, you're not going to want to do it. Like I push my buyers if it does need to be done, and pretty much I would say it's 90% for me, my buyers with like hardwood. You're not going to want to do it. It's a big thing.
It's a huge thing
to get it done.
You need to paint and refinish your floors before you move in. And you should have that money set aside.
And don't plan on, you're not there. Like that's something that you schedule and you get it done. You wait.
And
which
if you're
is
doing
hard
this
because it's like delayed gratification. It's like so hard. You're so excited.
You got like a Hubbard clause, and you got to move out of your house to move into the next one. You have like
and
2 hours.
Oh, yeah, right. It's true. And then they're not giving you the keys right away. Right. You're like on the side of the road waiting with your.
We're talking in a perfect world. There's, you know, exactly. But I mean, if you have the opportunity, these are the things you need to think about.
Yeah.
You know, because refinishing your floor and painting. If there's nothing in, you know, you don't have to move things around. The things don't get damaged. The contractors themselves are going to charge you less money if they're not trying to paint over your couch.
Right. Well, there's less prep, right, in terms of like covering furniture and
all of it.
Like they have to tape off certain like the baseboards, windows to trim that kind of thing. Right. But or if they're probably painting the trim, they should be. But that's the time to do it. The doors, everything
And if you're, and the smell too, like, listen, guys, like if you're
really bad,
if you have your floors refinished, it does not go away. And then we, you know, what last episode we talked about healthy homes. It's not good for you. Like if it smells chemically, probably not.
Well, and you're not really, you know, let alone children, pets, you know, I can't even imagine Blue being in there. Yeah. What we smell, he has a obviously stronger sense of smell than us. So that's like torture. But I think we were in there for, let's call it half an hour. I had already gotten a headache. I'm like, I need to go to a hotel. Like I can't be in here. Yeah.
And that was getting it a couple days after.
Yeah, that was like with after the go ahead. Yeah. Way after. Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Like, yes, in 3 days you can walk on the floor. And that's good. But if you add that extra day, 4 or 5 days, the finish gets a little bit harder.
Yeah,
and even more harder. So so you have that less of a chance for it to scratch.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff, that's a big deal. But with the right planning and doing it at the right times, like the floor stays beautiful. I mean, I think, you know, your parents were actually a good example. Like they just like they do it like every couple years, and like when they come and do it, like they don't really have to do a lot. Like it's just a quick polish and repoly.
Yeah.
And the floors are like, you know, they're like super shiny. But like
they do. Yeah, it's true.
But it's like they've kept up with it, and the house is old, but they kept up with it.
Yeah,
and
no,
it's like
true.
it's not even a big deal.
Yeah,
it's on your checklist for maintenance. Need to get the floors kind of brought up to
and I want to just like pivot for just a second because I think this is super important. You may or may not have heard in the news and all over, realtors as a group, as a profession, are like under attack in many different ways and many methods. This is one of the reasons, in my opinion, where true professionals like hold their value. This is the difference, because when you're thinking outside of the box, meaning outside of the transaction, when you have a greater understanding of, you know, thinking ahead, looking under things, you bring so much more value than just pushing some paperwork and selling or, you know, helping to sell your home or buy a home. So when you're in a position as a consumer, think about the value that a professional can bring to the transaction that is way bigger than just the actual baseline stuff, the bare minimum, right? So like, I wouldn't necessarily hire a professional for the bare minimum, but this is so much bigger than meaning buying or selling a home is so much bigger than just the bare minimum. It should be. It could be complicated, and there should be, like me telling my buyers, I'm like on my hands and knees pulling up a rug, like where's the finish and what does it look like?
Well, I think that's it's an interesting point, and it's I don't think people really understand how right that is.
Yeah.
Because, we live in a unique, New England is unique where it's been populated for a long time.
Yep.
So there is antique homes here.
Yep.
And people really have kept antique homes to be proud of them, right? A lot of times they just go away because sometimes it doesn't make sense. But so you have antique homes, in the 1800s, late 1800s, still a lot in especially in Litchfield County. And then each decade of homes we build a little bit differently.
Yep.
So you have to be an expert in each decade, not just homes in general, but in the 60s and 70s we decided to bury all our oil tanks.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't know what you're doing and you just started your and you have no idea even to look for that.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see an oil tank in the basement. Well, you have a buried one and it's actually leaking.
Yeah.
And now there's a problem.
Right.
So there's each
there's so many idiosyncrasies within the that it isn't talked about.
Right.
That isn't, and this is why I was just trying to, okay, what are the things that have happened to us?
Right.
Right? That we're just trying to spread the wealth of knowledge because I don't know. Obviously, I didn't even think about that type of sink until you said that.
Right. And
it's all over. The pictures are all over the place.
Yep.
And to your point, some of them look real nice. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily a design aesthetic in all of the ways that I would pick.
Right.
But they look really, really nice.
And even going back to our last episode about healthy homes and how we're like energy efficiency, everybody's doing it, let's make our houses tight. And now the result is you need an air exchanger because it's unhealthy.
Yeah.
But now, again, that's something as a realtor, you're walking into a house that was built in the early 2000s, realizing that was in that transition period.
Yeah.
And that might be like, hey guys, if you're worried about air quality, this house has higher insulation values.
Right.
I mean, it's really our house. We do need it. We do need to have air exchanger.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's something you want to put in because that in this era of this house, this was the issue. It's, another way you can talk about it is just cars, right? Each iteration of vehicles has, you talk to a mechanic and they're like, yeah, that car in between 2005 and 2010, the transmissions always went, like our Subaru is
always leaking oil. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the same thing with houses, they were built with different products that have issues.
Right.
And that's where you need to look at, older homes, you need to look, that's off of the, rural areas, you need to look for the buried tanks. You need to think about septics.
Yep.
Is it a cesspool? I mean, there's still cesspools out there, guys. It's not a septic. It's just kind of just going into the ground.
I sold a house recently.
And you had to
literally sold a house recently, and here's the thing. I said to the buyers at the time, I need to prepare you to hear this because it sounds scary.
Right.
And that's another whole thing. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but it's the way it was done.
Yeah.
It was the way it was done. So
here at the office, I mean, it was just kind of, it was
yeah.
That was it was just a tank, like a corrugated metal tank.
Yeah.
And then it just the leach field was the lawn.
Yeah.
And the lawn had a slope.
Yep.
So it just it's fun.
It was great.
It's so fun.
But another to wrap up,
yeah.
I think we're just about there. Is I thought about outside.
Okay.
because this is the time of year. It's actually going to be a really nice day here. I was talking to somebody in another state, and they were asking about the weather. I'm like, it's actually this is nice for us in Connecticut.
February 1st, and it's like 40.
I know,
degrees.
which we'll take it all day.
Yeah.
But using the proper salt.
Ooh, this is good. And
I'm on fire today.
You really are.
I really
and listen, you were called in.
I know.
We had somebody cancel.
I was bumped.
And we were like,
which, by the way, I am clearly need to never be bumped again because I give a lot.
I agree.
We
just rallied on this.
I mean,
this potty. I mean,
we're really
true professionals
phenomenal.
here. True professionals. Like I said when I came in, the talent is here.
Did you say that?
No, I said it this morning. I was joking. Like,
I love it. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, go. Salt.
Really read the bag, because the wrong salt will destroy your concrete. Plain and simple. You're pouring.
And for pets, obviously, because I'm like a nutcase about clearly. We all know this.
It's going to burn the,
Poor Blue's paws. I have special stuff I put on them because the salt is so hard on their paws, and it physically burns them.
And that's because we'll walk on the road.
Yeah.
We walk every night with Blue. But really check to make sure what you're grabbing the salt. And a lot of times the stuff at Home Depot or Lowe's, it's usually concrete safe.
Yeah.
But
just triple check, because you don't know, and it's real, just like granite. Just like any natural stone, and it really could wreak some havoc. So,
well, I mean, come springtime, and you're like, why is my concrete
looks like garbage?
Turning into.
But if that's the case, call us, and we can give you some really good masons we know. So anyway,
we've got a good list.
We have people for everything.
Yeah.
All right, this was great.
Awesome. So maintenance, keeping on top of cleaning things properly. Keep going on your floors.
Don't just pick stuff because it looks good on.
Yeah, think about it.
Think about like the real life application.
Right.
And one of the things I would say is, like, if you're thinking about picking a material and you're not sure, like Google like downfalls of.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Like, we normally don't do that, but it's something to think about. That way you at least know, as best you can ahead of time, or ask the person you're buying it from. They should know, right? Like, what are the downfalls of this?
Right.
And if they say none, well, that might not be the best person.
There's always a downfall.
There's always a downfall, whether it's maintenance, cleaning, whatever.
Let's leave it on the negative note.
We did it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.